Ladies and gentlemen, the great Bree Felling.
If you haven't heard me before, that's probably a good thing for you. My name is Bree Felling, and stop. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a poet and spoken word artist, usually here every Friday, stuff like that. I have a book, there's a signing list, normal stuff. Anyway, tonight's poem is a little bit different. I usually do longer spoken word pieces, but somebody had actually requested me to write something for them, and I should probably tell their story first so you understand the poem a little better. About 5 months ago, I was handing out flyers because I had to come here at Gracie's at 7 to read, and I met somebody just sitting on the side of the street, and I just wanted to go talk to them for some reason. And so I told them to come to Gracie's that night because something just told me that they should, and they ended up being somebody that I didn't expect, and I heard from them again recently, and they asked if their poem was done yet. And he asked me to tell his story, so this one's for him specifically. I have a habit of asking people I don't know yet to come hear me read poetry Friday nights at 7 at a cafe promising hot drinks and food. I've never given it much thought. I just think that people always need a couple extra words in their heart to make their own mosaics. I like to think that on occasion mine fit into the harder to reach places of the human design. One October Friday, I stopped to talk to a bearded man with a cane and a packed bag on the corner of the street I was handing out flyers on. His voice told me his name was Vince. His eyes told me that his heart had a few places that a warm cafe, poetry, and music might be able to fill. My instinct told me he needed to be there that night. I saw him walk in a little after 7 o'clock. I realized I forgot to mention the $3 door charge earlier, so I gave him a $5 and told him to keep the change and buy a snack during the show. He tried to give it back to me, but poetry always goes better with the smell of coffee beans. After he got settled, he took a worn piece of paper from his pocket, told me it was a poem, and asked me to read it for him. The title read, "I'm Your Disease." He said it was special, and it was easy to see that the lines of his palms and the creases on the poem were both familiar friends. You never need to ask about the past of a man who cherishes a poem about the voice of addiction. It was easy to see that this was no paper, but a medal of honor for conquering a once-losing battle, and me reading it on stage for him was an acceptance speech. After the show that night, we talked outside, not ready to say goodbye. We talked about how society was failing and the world had become cold. We told stories, and he offered to tell me his. Vince was a cheerful man, easy to talk to, optimistic and funny. I hadn't originally thought to question his cough, or why he carried so much with him, or why my $5 meant a little more than I was expecting. I didn't think to ask about the hospital band on his wrist. I've never been one to question circumstance or directly ask about someone's background. I've learned the best stories are the ones they aren't ready to tell you until you've earned them. Vince told me about the money in the house that he turned down, because he was a better man than some. He told me the only home he had was where he decided to sleep that night, that the only food came from donations. He told me the bruises on his face were from a man who robbed him last week for the few dollars he didn't have to give. He told me the streets are not safe at night, no matter how much money you do or don't have. He told me how the hospital can no longer help him because he doesn't have the money to pay for the cancer to go away. Despite all this, he still spent the night with me, laughing and telling jokes, and thanking me for one of the best nights he's had in a long time, a gift I didn't realize I gave. He asked if I would mind if he used the extra money from the $5 to buy a beer from down the street, but I suppose that when every day could be the last, a beer to celebrate a good night couldn't be such a bad thing. At the end of the night, when we said goodbye, I couldn't help but wonder if I said the right words or said what he needed to hear. I thought I should have asked where he was headed next, but I don't think he knew either. All I could do was say a little prayer and hope we would meet again someday. It's a comfort to know that God watches over travelers. Thank you.